Atlantis was a very advanced ancient civilization. What evidence have you found in Malta of an advanced civilization?
First of all, we need to put in mind that we live on top of a mountain now because of the sea and the flood. So there are no remains of mankind's living abodes or so, nothing. The only thing we find or have been rediscovered or found are so-called temples. In Malta, I would say about right now they discovered 24 of them, and I think they are altogether 36. So, but each so-called temple site did exist of 3 units, single units, and one of the temple I explored very seriously for about 2 years, and I had found the structures has been built after the Golden Mean, and stone people are not or have not been able to construct and build buildings in this way of construction, and not 36 with this about 9,000 people. So, and on the end, I came to the conclusion that a complex that exists always of 3 single units and were built in the shape of an egg. But when you take in mind the shape of our planet, only the soil, the rock, it has similar looks like the temple, like you see it on the left side here. They had a roof, and the total height had been about 12 meters. And so I told that the structures has been built after the Golden Mean by a basic number of 16, the proportion. And all the temples has been aligned to a certain section on the southeastern sphere of the sky. All. But in order to explain this, we need to know about the precision of Earth. And the precision of Earth says that the rotation of our Earth runs counterclockwise, but because of the special shape of our planet, it is humbling on the flight around the sun, and so it rotates a little bit backwards, clockwise. Yeah? And this means precision means going back. And this goes back in 72 years, 1 degree. So in 1080 years, moved back 15 degrees. And in 2160 years, 30 degrees. And this times 12 fulfill a circle of 25,960 years. And this is the reason that you will find in Malta 24 temple places. They have been built following the way of the precision of the Earth, clockwise backward to the rotation. And so they were observing always the same southeastern night sky. So the pyramid structures in Egypt has another function than the function of the so-called temples in Malta and Gozo. Totally different. Mm-hmm. But the Maltese temples were has been built in the first, or 24 of the 36, has been built to follow this Platonic year of 25,960 years, but always to observe only a certain section on the southeastern sky. I tell you then later on why. Huh? This has to do to predict a coming disaster on Earth. We call it nowadays climate change. We cannot stop. That what we have nowadays in mind, when we reduce our behavior to the Stone Age people, that we can stop the climate change. This is a fantastic opinion, will not help, because all the efforts the Atlantean people have spent to predict a coming event, because they knew that our solar system exists of altogether 12 members, the Sun and 11 planets. And one of the 11 has a very, very long orbit around our Sun. And this orbit takes 3,600 years. The Sumerian people called this planet Nibiru. And every time when this planet comes back in our solar system, it causes disaster on Earth. And in order to get protected before this disaster, they had built all the observatories to continue when this planet comes back in our solar system, that they can be protected before the disaster. This was the purpose of the first. The second one, all together are parts to form or to spread out the energy in form of a vortex around the world. So the center from Atlantis in Malta was the beginning of the electromagnetic radiation we realize around the whole world. And this was spread out in a grid, like our geographical grid we know nowadays. But there is a magnetic grid, and our pilots on ships or in the Navy, in the Marine, and in the aircraft, their orientation, or they think or orientate their flights to the true magnetic north, forms a grid. But the beginning of this flowing around the earth is here in Malta. This is the Maltese. And when you talk about the pyramids in Egypt, I told you about Atlantis, the meaning of the three mounts. And in the second disaster of Atlantis, there was something that this mountain belt was splitted or was breaking off from Egypt and Saudi Arabia, now forming the Red Sea and the Gulf of Suez. And the flow of the electromagnetic waves around the Mediterranean mountains had been interrupted. And so the Atlanteans has to make a bridge that the electromagnetic flow could continue again. So this was like we call it nowadays, it was a short. And so on the east side of the Sinai mountain, no, on the east side of the Sinai Peninsula, there is a mountain of three, or a mountain pattern of three mounts. Mount Mose, Mount Catherine, and the third one I do not know. So there are three on the side of the Sinai Peninsula. But on the Gizeh Plateau there is nothing. So they had to make an artificially three-mount pattern So these are the three pyramids. And when you see the pyramids from above, they have all three the same height, the same level. But they were built in a different landscape and to follow. So the Cheops pyramid is the biggest one and the Menkaure is the smallest one. But in the end they form one line on top. And it was supplied by water before. So the pyramids had been water pumps and the water condensed on top so that they influenced the electromagnetic flow on top from the pyramids to the Sinai mountain pattern, and so the flow of the electromagnetic waves could continue around the Mediterranean, and the converting point into the middle was covered again.
To send stuff upwards?
Yes, it went up.
But that was to send a material to Nibiru.
Yes.
Incredible. So this is like an electromagnetic conveyor belt.
Yes, of course. This was the function we see now. And they have been built after the golden mean. So we know it nowadays what the golden mean means. No? So we can divide this amount to this amount, you will find always 1.618. Or when you measure from your top up till your tile here, and the rest, and then you divide this, you come to the same amount, 1.618. And after the same proportion, all the temple structures had been built here, like I showed you. This way. And when you see the picture of our planet without the water, it is very similar shape. This is always the same thing. So we come back to Atlantean times, to the Atlanteans. And the Atlanteans have been organized like in a beehive. And the so-called hypogeums in different levels has been shaped or styled like the, what is this called, in the beehive where the bees store the honey and the new breed. Mm-hmm. So you can, if you have this in mind, then when you go underneath into the mountain of Malta, then you see the same structure in the mountains, level by level. So the hypogeum, it means under the, or the hypogeum means in the underworld. And the Atlanteans lived in the inner world, but not the humans. The humans were allowed to live outside on the surface. But the Atlanteans, the original Atlanteans, has been demi-Gods. From outer space came down, at Anunnaki. So in Malta was in the hypogeums. We need to count many of hypogeums in the rock of Malta, and one was used in this area. It was like a university nowadays. So one was in one section of faculty, they make experiments with human genetic, so medical. The second one, they tried to make experiments with electromagnetic waves, with electromagnetism. And the third one had been the archive, where all the history of Atlantis and the culture before Atlantis has been stored. So, but this is still there, but not to be found nowadays. And the stories, what we get told nowadays about the so-called hypogeum in High Safiene is only a story created by modern authors or whatever you can call them. Original functions are totally different. But on some places, but I do not wear. It's something like a prism. And there are people, what is this called in English? People who was destined to be executed had the chance either to be executed or put the soul into stone. And some of the stones down there, even in the hypogeum, there are spirits present in stones. And this is what some people get when they go down, and so they create stories around. But it's totally different than the people are telling us. But this is only a part of it. No? But you can, and there are other things in the end of the days of Atlantis. The so-called hypogeums had been used, or the one on top, like now. So the first, the two, and the third level from top down were used as shelters. And they knew the prediction, the planet is coming, causing disasters on Earth, so they did protect the people around Malta, the living outside, on the surface. They protect them into the shelters, but nobody expect the coming flood. And so they were killed by water. And you will find in Malta, on the south cliffs, like in the cave Ardalan, you find, or they have found only the skeletons or bones of animals. But this is not the only one. There are some more caves still, but covered by the water, that are full of animal bones. And animals, they do not normally live on top of a mountain. So they did escape themselves for a coming disaster, but they were also killed by the flood. And then when the water went away, they were buried by the soil, by the deposit. This was the hypogeums in the end. But it's not only in Malta, you find this in Comino as well, in caves. And on some caves, you will find only, or you recognize when you are in a high spiritual level, you feel the souls of the killed people. They are still there. And they are claiming, or they looking for something, or ask for something. And then you feel this, or some people feel this as a bad energy. But it's not a bad energy. They are the souls still there.